Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, greetings and salutations. Today I'm speaking to Mr. Robert People. He's the congressional candidate from the great state of Florida, District 15. He's vying for the Democrat nomination in 2026. How you doing, sir?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you again.
It's good to have you.
So
Yes,
thanks for
yes,
having
sir.
me.
Yeah, I saw you. I saw you on a. All right. Yeah, I saw you on I saw a clip of your video on Reese Waters. He's a YouTuber, content creator,
Mm-hmm.
and you saw a clip of you when you was talking about you was referring to Erica um Charlie Kirk's widow with JD Vance in
Okay.
Mississippi, and that little
Yeah.
clip you made about the Puerto Rican wife. You
Oh.
know, you wouldn't do it. Yeah. It was funny. Funny. I said, I want to know who he is. So that's why I sought you out. And I said,
Yeah.
I want to talk to you. So, yeah. So, Mr. People, um, tell me about yourself. Um, what you into? Was you in the military? All of that. Can you please just do a little introduction about yourself so we can so you can tell everybody who you are and everything.
Okay. Yeah. Name is Robert People, running for Congress for Florida's District 15. My background: I was originally born in Baltimore. I did join the military right out of high school, and I left on a day after my 18th birthday, and served for 21 years. Retired in 2018, and retired out of Texas and moved here the following year. So I've been in this district since 2019, so for 6 years. And my reason for running is because during my time in the Army, I've really become passionate about continuing public service, and also I learned from one of my leaders that it's better to be part of the solution than part of the problem. And eventually, when you're complaining so much but not really contributing to trying to fix it, or doing being part of the greater good to get things looked at and corrected, fixed, then you're ultimately part of the problem. And that's what I've done over the last probably several years. Is just I've talked a lot about what I see Congress doing wrong, and I realized after this past election that this is time for me to step up and put my hat in the ring and work on fixing this as well.
Okay. Would you mind share what rank you were when you was in the United States Army?
Yeah, Sergeant First Class. I
Oh,
retired as a Sergeant First Class, and I did, as far as my jobs at the time. The first half of my career, I was an ammunition specialist, or as those in the military know, as 89 Bravo. And the second half of my career, I was a journalist,
mm-hmm.
46 Quebec.
Oh, okay. 46, correct. Okay. Um, Knowing that we since this is November after the elections in New York and New Jersey and Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
um, what is your attitude now coming into the primary for next year? And what are your thoughts of each of those elections in New Jersey, Virginia, and New York City? What are and especially with the rise of Mr. Mondani and the so far, what are the process the proc in your eyes? What is the feeling for 2026 as a
Well,
Democrat?
right now I feel encouraged because of seeing those results. Uh, Zoran Mamdani, Zoran Mamdani is, of course, the first Muslim to be elected for mayor of New York City, but also a grassroots organizer, and that's something that I've always pushed as far as as part of my campaign. We're talking about the people, people run, people funded, and so forth. And there's so much. I say this, I repeat this often, and I want to continue repeating it so that others are encouraged to enter races too, is that running for public office, and every office we're talking about, all the way up to the presidency, is the running for office is meant for everyday working class folks. And
Hmm.
once money, of course, obviously, once money got involved, that cut a lot of people out. A lot of folks are not able to do that simply because they don't have the money. It has nothing to do with their ability to do the job, and many can do the job likely better than who we have in office now. But just the funds, the finances aren't there for them to do that, to be able to do, to go. And once we get to the filing deadlines where fees have to be submitted, a lot of people unfortunately have to drop out at that time simply because they don't have the money. So this was encouraging for me to see that this is a regular everyday person, a working class person, not someone known, not someone who has billions of dollars, and not to mention the fact that he defeated someone who was backed by billionaires, and Andrew Cuomo. So
Right.
this again, this shows at least the dawn of a new, to borrow from the phrase, the dawn of a new day, at least as far as when it comes to candidates entering the race. And I know a lot more candidates, especially working class candidates now, and I'm happy not only with for myself, but I'm happy for them as well because hopefully they were encouraged by this also. Same thing for Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger. She's the first woman elected as governor in Virginia. So that's anytime there is a first, the breaking of the glass ceiling, that's always encouraging as well. I have a daughter, so obviously, I mean, it's good just without that, but I have a daughter, and I want her to see historic moments like that involve women, that involve people who are the
Hmm.
same gender as her. So that was great. That was wonderful as well. And we're talking about also I'm sorry, the lieutenant governor, and I'm sorry I don't have her name. She was the first Muslim woman elected as lieutenant governor. So, and I
Right.
want to give
Right.
her, and I'm sorry I don't have her name, but I want to give her the same. Let's see, governor. I'm just looking up real quick. Governor of Virginia, because I don't want to mention everybody else's name and then Ghazala Hashmi, her name is. If I'm saying
Oh,
that
that
correctly,
okay. Hmm.
and
Yeah.
yeah, that's she deserves attention, and the well wishes as well. So lieutenant governor and governor are both women, and again, historic moment for Virginia. And Mikey Sherrill of New Jersey, I understand she's the second woman elected New Jersey for New Jersey governor, but that's still a huge deal because we're talking about 2025, and only the second time in New Jersey's history was a woman elected. So again, big deal. And when we're looking at, again, this is, you know, a lot of folks, especially as I'm going and campaigning and making calls and speaking to those in the community, uh, they were losing hope. People were moving out of not only the state of Florida, but moving out of the country really because they felt like they just did not feel safe here. They didn't want to continue just being here with everything going on. And this really reversed a lot of those courses. People have straight up told me, they said, you know what, maybe I'll stick around for a little bit more because this showed us something. And the main thing to remember too, I think for a lot of people who aren't aware, is that while those on the other side obviously will talk about how this isn't really flipping anything because New York was already blue, Virginia and New Jersey, they were all blue states already. But what to keep in mind, that it wasn't the states that flipped. It wasn't states that flipped at all, but the cities and counties within the state. Someone I spoke to during a live last week, who lives in New Jersey, said there was one that was 7 points in favor of Donald Trump during the presidential election, and it swung 35 points to 28 points in favor of Mikey Sherrill. So those are where the flips are, if we know, for those who want to know. But
Right.
right now, very encouraged to see that people are getting, wanting to get more engaged, more involved, and they feel more empowered that their votes make a difference, that their involvement, that their volunteering, matters.
And do you think is in going off on that, right?
Hmm.
Because of the Madani win and the win in New Jersey,
Hmm.
specifically, do you believe this is a generational change within the Democratic Party? Because right from what I see right now, because everybody wants Chuck Schumer out. Some people want Nancy Pelosi's leaving. Dick Durbin from Illinois Senator Dick Durham, he's leaving, isn't it? And you see, John F. Kennedy's grandson
Hmm.
is trying to replace Nandler in New York. So is this more about the generational shift, the generation change within the Democratic Party, and for the most part, more than just because you talk about New Jersey and New York? Do you see that, or is it just these wins are just an anomaly?
I feel generational could be a way to look at it because as I'm, going and speaking to, members in the community,
Hmm.
a lot of their senior citizens were saying, "Look, our time is done. Let's let some, let some younger folks in there," and younger people are getting more involved as well. When you have those two together, it's difficult not to see that this is definitely a generational shift. I just came from, as a matter of fact, yesterday I attended a mayoral race for a young man named Alan Henderson, and a lot of young folks there, a lot of young people want to get involved, and not only is that encouraging, but that really it validates what you just said about this being something, this being generational, and a lot of when young people see that they have a voice that makes them want to get more involved, and they're not shut down by those of us who are older. And I'm 46, so I'm they may see me as kind of part of that older group, even though I'm still probably younger compared to some of who's in office now. But they, yeah, to answer the question, yes, I think it could be very well viewed as generation because at some point that always, that always ends up happening. There's always a changing of the guard, so to speak. And I think, yes, I think you might be right. This definitely could be it. And, again, when you're talking, you mentioned Chuck Schumer, and that's sort of what adds to it as well. That's even more of a validation when they're mentioning those Democrats who have been in office forever. Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, I think his name was thrown around too, not as much, but in there. I think Cory Booker was said too. It's almost like there are, and people were ready for Nancy Pelosi, as you mentioned. So yeah, there's always a time where the generation, starts to, the next generation gets ready to begin. We see that transition. I think yes, that's the case. That may be the case here.
Oh, okay. So you live in a red state, which is Florida,
Hmm.
and the congressperson is a Republican, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Um, what is your strategy without saying so much? What is your strategy in winning over some of the more Trump MAGA supporters, are if there are those who are, what is your strategy to win those type of people over to your campaign, if you have any?
The first step is to understand who are not, well, understand that everyone is not MAGA to the extreme as as we probably think. And
Hmm.
there are going to be some that no matter how wonderfully I present myself, they're not budging simply because. But others are more. They're looking to separate. They're looking for something different. This party has let them down. MAGA has let them down, and they want to look at what their options are. And I'm being total complete transparency here. I'm not looking to beg anybody to change course if they're in that hard, that have that hard line where they're not budging. But for those who are looking to say, you know what, let me hear what you have to say. And I've had people come on to my lives, my TikTok lives I do, and they will say, "Hey, I'm a conservative. You mind if I ask you a couple of questions?" The people like that, I have no problem engaging with because these are folks who want to. I don't mind, working for, the votes of people like that because they're looking to have a discussion. They're looking to have a conversation and say, "Look, I'm looking for, I want other options. Tell me what you're about." And those have become positive conversations. So it would start with just being upfront with them, being open to them, and not coming down on them and saying, "Well, you know what, you were there, so you're going to stay over. I want you to stay over there and don't come try to support." No, I don't want to do that. We can't do that. We've all been fooled at one time or another. So
Hmm.
if they get to where they feel, they're if they're getting to where they feel like they can admit that this was not their best choice, I don't, that's to me is good enough. That's good enough for me. So I don't mind. extending an olive branch and saying, okay, let me tell you what I'm about now. And, let's focus on what we all agree on. This nonsense is, we want this out of here, but let's focus on what we can agree on. We both can agree on cheaper grocery prices, cheaper gas, the better cost, higher standard of living, not higher cost of living, but affordability, specific, to where we know what affordability means to all people, not just as a generic statement thrown around by candidates, but really just going deep into, what can we agree on, which is most of what is out there. We're not going to, we both want to see, people get, work jobs where they're getting paid a living wage. And we get food. I think sometimes we get to thinking that because the media, the national media, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, since they show us when there's drama, if you will, within the parties, people typically think maybe that's the only thing there is. And I would say no. There's not. There would be a bunch of bills, legislation, things like that are passed nonpartisan. No, there's no problem. They pass. Meeting doesn't last. The hearing doesn't last. I'm sorry, not the hearing, but that session doesn't last too long, and it goes through with no problem. And we never hear about those because there's nothing really to that. It's when there's disagreements and things have to drag out a little bit that we hear, and people look at that and just think, hey, we are on separate battle stations. And it's not like that all the time. So that's what I would look to try to get better with, those who are on the Republican side, those who are on, in some cases, the MAGA side, and just say, where are you with this? Let me meet you where you are, and you tell me what would help you.
Okay. So which leads me to another question I want to ask. What are your 5 priorities? Should you win, what are the 5 priorities in Congress? Or I should say, what are your 5 priorities in your platform that you want to go at first? You I think that's better. Yeah, that would be the question. What are your
Okay.
top 5 priorities? What you would do?
Well, I would start with affordability, and what I've added to that is that's number one. I say affordability with specificity, and that's just to mean that I want to be specific about what affordability means to each person individually, because I don't want to get to a point where, as a candidate, I'm just throwing something around that worked for other candidates, and people are, and my potential constituents are in a place of, okay, well, did you hear what I said specifically? Um, affordability means this to me. Are you going to address what I'm telling you? And generally, we're talking about grocery prices, gas prices, just being able to electric bill costs, health insurance costs, healthcare costs, items like that. Those are some of the basics, but not to draw that hard line to say those are my only areas I'm looking at. So this requires conversations with people and to find out exactly, okay, what is your definition of affordable? Or not what is your definition, but what would affordability, what point would you reach before affordability do you feel that part is met? So I would start there. When we talk about also social security, I don't want that to come off the table either. That's number 2, because we talked about that a lot earlier in the year, and the issue has not fixed itself. We haven't done anything, and I say we, just meaning Congress, haven't done anything to improve that situation. But it's so of course it's still there, and I don't want that to get lost, especially with Florida being the second having the second highest percentage of seniors of any state in the country. So there are a lot of seniors obviously in District 15. So I want to make sure we keep that on the table as well. When we talk about this immigration reform, this is number 3. We really have to reform the immigration system. What's going on now is unacceptable. That's not a reach across the table item. There's no way that there hasn't been any major changes, I understand, in about 40 years. And what ICE is doing now, to put it bluntly, is, again, unacceptable, should not continue to happen. I will do what I can to make sure that doesn't happen and that stops, because there's no reason families should be separated the way they are. Children are ripped apart from their, kept in vehicles driven off. No, that's not. We should never make that normalized. So there needs to be, some sense of defunding ICE for one thing, because it almost looks like they have a blank check, and that probably dated me a little bit to say blank check, but basically unlimited funds to do whatever they want, and no agency should be, basically have the green light to do anything. And we see the anything that's happening. We can't even address really that people are pretending to be ICE agents and there being any kind of punishment for them. So we really have to touch on that. So to go back to it, I'm including that with immigration reform, because we have to make it, if we have a system that allows for asylum, we don't need to, we want to make sure that we're being fair to those we are granting this to. So it can't be that we have the government now changing statuses without immigrants knowing, and suddenly they go from being, documented or having the visa or being in good standing to now they're not in good standing because someone clicked a few keys on a keyboard and they're getting messed with now. So that's number 3. Number 4 would be reversing the effects of this big ugly bill, we're going to call it. And we have to do that because there's so many people are already starting to, or they've already, as of a few months ago, starting to get notices that say that their insurance premiums are going up. And we're talking about, in some cases, tripling and quadrupling. Not acceptable. The harmful items in this bill we need to undo that. So I definitely want to make sure we get back to a place where people can feel comfortable that they have money and they don't have to choose between really survival, living, and dying because they can't afford medicine or healthcare and so on. So, and I would say number 5, and these will shift as we go on. Number 5, women's reproductive rights. That's another one that we've talked about for a little bit. We've tabled it some, but women's health rights or reproductive rights and overall health outcomes in general. And I say overall health outcomes because not only should we not be, the government should not be involved as far as that part of it goes, because there's so many reasons that abortion may be necessary, vital for either for a woman's survival. There also are so many instances where I want to support further, and then testing is not the word, but basically studies done on regarding women's health, because right now so much of it is geared toward men, and there's just misdiagnoses are happening all the time. Women have said they feel straight up dismissed, and we can't let that be. I always want to I want to try as best as I can to maybe take things a step further. So that's why I'm going more into this in each of these areas. But right now, I would say those are the top 5.
Okay. So speaking about the women reproductive health,
Mm-hmm.
how would you codify Roe v. Wade, or would you create another type of law or guideline to when concerning abortions? How would you what's the word? Well, you know what? A better term is: would you codify Roe v. Wade, or would you try to modify Roe v. Wade, or if you were elected?
Yes, I would. I believe in codifying Roe v. Wade, because what that means, of course, for those who don't know, is that just means it would pass a law that would affirm that a pregnant woman's right to an abortion, they'll have a right to an abortion without undue interference, which that should be the way it is anyway. Um, we all have our thoughts, and there's so many, and it's misguided really, because there are so many men and women who both assume that women, especially young women and girls want abortions because they were just careless, and it's not like they're the only ones involved. But that's why so many want to get in that conversation and get involved with it, but we're also leaving out sexual assaults, rapes, and things like that, and also the health, the health implications of it. Some may
Hmm.
very well want to have the children, children, and abortion is their only option. Now, again, I want to be respectful to, what women have to experience here. So those are not, by no means are those the exclusive, the only reasons for abortion and such. But there needs to be, education on our part to make sure we're not just, we're not assuming the worst and then getting involved where we really shouldn't. So yeah, I agree with codifying Roe v. Wade.
Okay. So because like the reason why it's I'm very I find it very problematic about this abortion issue,
Yeah.
and because like okay, I live in Texas, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, there is a Texas Tribune article written about 6 7 years ago about the reason why black women, African American women, are having these abortions because of infant what's it called, infant
Mortality rates.
mortality rate. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's been a problem. It's been a problem for a very, very long time. And then you're hearing the stereotypes, black women are killing their babies and blah
Yeah.
blah 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 blah. The nonsense that you hear online and you hear on talk radio.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is a lot of women, especially in low income minority areas. Me and you are African American, so I see women not just doing this. They're doing it because the medical industry is not treating black people
Mm.
correctly, especially black women correctly. And I think that needs to be addressed. And I too um, became pro choice because I see what's really going on. And then what happened in, I think it was what, South Carolina, North Carolina, this young woman who had an aneurysm.
Mm-hmm.
They kept her alive for weeks,
I
even
believe
though
that was South
they
Carolina. Yeah.
no South Carolina, yeah, South Carolina, and she was allowed to, as she's brain dead, they just kept her alive in order for her to give birth. But the baby itself, and if I'm not mistaken, it was still stillbirth. So, it was disgusting in my eyes what happened to her. And then, what happened to this lady here in Texas?
Oh, I'm
She
sorry to
almost
interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt. That was Georgia. I'm sorry about that. Georgia that
uh,
happened in.
okay, that
Mm-hmm.
was Georgia. Okay, I thought it was the Carolinas. It was Georgia. Okay,
Okay.
I'm glad. Thank you for correcting me. And
Mm-hmm.
then what happened in Texas? There was a young woman. I think it was in Dallas area. She almost passed away. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
she was feeling cramps, and her boyfriend or husband, took her to the hospital, and she had to be forced to have that child, and still the child was still, you know, did not come to term anyway. So
Uh.
I find it that because the doctors would have ended it, but because of Texas law, and Texas state law is very harsh when it comes to reproductive rights,
Mm-hmm.
and it hindered her from making the option to leave the state, because if you come back to state, it will count as a murder um in my state.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think though, nobody, I think this discussion is not being honest about
Yeah.
why people are having abortions, why people are
That.
seeking to have that options. And it's not an honest option. And it's, you know it's more about control, and
Mm-hmm.
more than anything else. It's not really about the health of the baby,
Yeah.
or it's not about pro-life, because if you was pro-life, you wouldn't be, you would have that child being taken care of from the womb to the tomb. and
Yeah.
and
There you go.
right, so yeah, I see the hypocrisy within the pro-life movement, um especially those in the Christian right, which I see as a threat. I don't know,
Yeah.
do you, here's a better question. Do you see the Christian right, the Christian nationalists, as a threat to America?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And thank you for bringing up the brain dead young lady. Yeah. That was the Georgia woman, yeah, and that's a great point too, as far as the black women. I mean, you're talking about even less options for them. So thank you for, and I make sure I include that in my discussions as well. And Christian nationalists, yeah, absolutely, 100%. As a matter of fact, we did. Let me see. 2 weeks ago, I was part of a protest. We were doing we weren't protesting. We were outside of a women's clinic where they perform abortions here, and or we women not only perform, but that's part of what they do. And Christian nationalists they came there to protest, and of course, in some of the things they were, yeah, it wasn't a whole bunch. They were ultimately just two guys there, and we were a smaller group. There was another group that was given there to do sort of like a small food and clothing drive, and we were near a bus stop, so there were probably about maybe five or seven of us, and there in total. And we wanted to make sure we would just hand things out as people were walking by. And two Christian nationalists, they came, and I understand that they go there every week. And some of the things they were yelling out that very much validates they're a big threat. Of course, they saw me there and they immediately said, "Oh, they're killing black babies in here too. Don't you care?" And they knew I was running for office. So, this was, that's very harmful, terrible rhetoric to use. And of course, they would tell other black people as they walk by, "You don't want to vote for this guy because he's okay with black babies being killed." When you talk about using that kind of language, yes, they're very much a threat, and they're doing it's intentionally deceitful. So
Mm-hmm.
let me be. I'm going to be straight up direct about this. Christian nationalists are a threat. They're to be intentionally deceitful, but like you said, they're using the whole, caring about, being pro-life and so forth. But let's talk about what's going on in places, throughout the world, in places like Gaza, how women and children are being treated over there if we care about pro-life. Let's talk about the immigrants here if we're talking about being pro-life. Let's talk about the children in schools being murdered if we're talking about pro-life. So if we want to go to that and it not be about control, let's talk about, all the other areas in which children really need us as adults to step up for them and do better than what we're doing. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, they're very much a threat, Christian nationalists.
Okay. Um, this I might be a little bit backwards, but how what is your um assessment, um since so you are a military, somebody from the military, about the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk, and do you believe what is being said about the alleged assailant, or do you think though there's something more than what we're being told?
Right now, of course, I would not encourage that. I'm not going to pretend that I really ultimately had any respect for him. I didn't, because what he was passing out was, or the information he was putting out, and the words and rhetoric he was going with was very harmful, especially when you're talking about when we talk about bigotry. I mean, he was saying things direct um, that affected marginalized communities. So that's where I'm on that. However, that does not mean, as someone in the military, I never feel that anybody deserves to lose their lives over their opinion. So at no point did I feel that was acceptable to do. I posted on my social media that I'm praying for him, because again, we all have a chance, and not to get preachy at all, but we all should have a chance if to realize, if he realized at some point he was wrong. We don't get to see that now, and he doesn't get to step back and say, okay, you know what, maybe I was out of line for this and so on. And it's not, it's definitely not my place to say this was good, and it wasn't good at all. But I'm just saying,
Right.
that's where it wouldn't be my place to say this would be acceptable and so forth because of that. So no, under no circumstances should this have happened to him. Regarding, uh, is there more going on? When I tie this to, you know, when our information is coming from, largely from the government, it's hard to trust anything they're saying right now.
Right.
And that's really that's really it. I haven't dug into it really to see, you know, how, the ways that it could go one way or another. And I don't want to get caught up in conspiracies either. But when we get, immediately we started hearing from Congress, we started hearing from the president, things like that. And once they start getting involved, then it's no telling where we'll end up or how this could have happened. Of course, we hear that the speculate immediately. We heard that it was, Democrats were blamed for it. Then it was discovered that this person was more on, the conservative side, and it was believed that this happened because Charlie Kirk mentioned the Epstein files. And right now, if that's the case, one thing I always say is that I want to be able to say with certainty that things could go one way or another. And here I can't even say that. So would this be an inside? I mean, who knows where? I mean, we could, people can say, well, maybe this was an inside job. Maybe it was just some random person who, admired Charlie Kirk and saw the writing on the wall that he was flipping. So he decided to do this on his own, under his own accord. No telling, really. It's hard really to say, especially when this administration and this current government is involved, because this administration, the Trump administration I'm talking about, they've been caught lying repeatedly. And when members of Congress, and that's where I get passionate, that's what I get passionate about, when members of Congress get involved with that and start pushing those same lies and that same propaganda and those same, and is being deceitful in the same manner, no telling what this really is about deep down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, I'm gonna go a little bit more into this because ever since from then till now, I see I don't know if you see it as well, but do you see do you think that his death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, do you think that has a lasting effect in American politics for years to come, or do you think this is just uh, you know his the propaganda part of it? Do you think this will last for another election cycle? Because ever since then I've been seeing people propping up and you know Turning Point USA is now having high school chapters in high schools now, and they're going to and then what happened in Tennessee State when a charter clerk no clerk no is clerk Kirk, I'm sorry, Kirk,
Mm-hmm.
um clones being in Tennessee State. I don't know if you saw with that HBCU that escorted these clones out of their campus, and then you saw Mother Bell Church and Methodist Church, AME Church, and when was that? Philadelphia, where another Charlie Kirk type person tried to invade the space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you think though there needs to be I want to say there needs to be a law or some type of regulations that would um, make sure people like that is not hindering people's worship or their education, because I see that some people are getting on these college campuses just to disrupt whatever is going the functions within that community.
Whenever, if we're talking about any type of legal protest, we
Hmm.
definitely don't want to infringe on that. But anything beyond that, then yes, that should not, or then I'm sorry, no, that should not be acceptable, should not be allowed. To answer your question about whether, how long will this go, I don't see this going. This may go an election cycle, but this person, other than having this organization, and we don't know. I mean, being straight up, things are different, of course, when you're a white person compared to a person of color. It's a little bit
Hmm.
easier for us to sort of be dismissed after a while. But this one here, this one is being we understand the messages he was putting out there, and this is going to, there folks are going to hang on to this for a while. So I would say, you're talking about, would it last the next election cycle? Probably so. But when we start seeing a shift, seeing shifts in if the Democratic Party starts, if we start flipping, let's say flipping the House of Representatives, flipping the Senate, the presidency, and so forth, we're going to see I feel we're going to see maybe an uptick because people want to make sure this legacy, if you will, as they call it, continues on and so forth. Now we don't know, of course, when we get in office, for as far as Democrats, whether they will ensure that the turning point chapters don't exist in colleges. Now, when you start going to that, to that extent, it's no telling whether or not we would go and do that to say, hey, these chapters should not exist, so no school's allowed to have them. But as far as just on its own, where will this go? I would also say, I guess I would say too, it depends on how connected to MAGA this is. And what I mean by that is, if we see what's happening now, and things are unraveling pretty fast as far as MAGA is concerned, as far as Trump is concerned, and he's the head of the snake, so to speak, for MAGA. And if those same people supported Charlie Kirk in that, if those same folks supported Charlie Kirk in a similar manner, and MAGA starts to come apart and really just eventually dissipate completely, then I believe that will have an effect, and that'll determine also how long we hear about Charlie Kirk and these turning point chapters and things like that. I don't think it's going to be quick, but I think a lot of that will have to do with how these next elections look and who ends up, how the House of Representatives, Senate, and the presidency look.
Okay. I want to now earlier I talked about the Christian right, but what I see about what I see is that's problematic is our support of what's going on in Gaza, because you mentioned Gaza and I'm talking about the Christian right. They're the steadfastness of their support for the current regime in Israel, which is Benjamin Netanyahu is facing a trial, and ever since they keep bringing him his case, is either the bombing in Iran, the further war crimes within Gaza. What is your policy when between us in Israel and us in the rest of the Middle East? What will be your policy coming forward on
Well,
that issue?
I will not. First of all, I will not accept political contributions from the AIPAC organization and the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. I will not accept contributions from them or individual donors that are cycled through AIPAC. As far as what's happening in Israel, I want to be clear that being against what Israel is doing is not the same as, and this is what this is some harmful rhetoric going around too, that being against what Israel is doing is the same as being against the Jewish population, and that's not true at all. We are this is a genocide that is happening there. That's bottom line, and I would also not support further arms going over there, for further arms and weapons. Continuing to pay for that and support them in this manner. As a veteran, this is I'm passionate about this as well, because I've been in Iraq and I've been to Afghanistan and have seen this up close. And what I feel is among the most troubling parts of it, obviously, other than the loss of life, the needless loss of life by innocent civilians, is our normalizing of it. And how over the years, again, this is not being naive. This is, over the years and over the centuries and so forth, this has become part of war. Well, this just happens in war. I mean, I saw someone, I think a few days ago, as they were going against, this stance, not that I was saying as someone else was, and I was on the same page with that person. This person said, well, that happens in war, but does it have to? And when you make mistakes like that, if you're going against target A, but you do all this over here, should you not come forward and say, this is our goal? We did this. We apologize for this. This was not our intention. We want to, do better. Anything else that we fail we would fail, for, and I think the number something is something to the effect, and don't quote me on this particularly, but I believe it's something like 80% of the time they have Israel has missed their targets and innocent civilians have been killed. And even with that, not even if that's not the exact number, anything else we do, if we are off by that much, we're going to go back and say, hey, wait a minute, we have to do something different here because we're failing more than we are succeeding. And I would say the same if this was with us in the United States, and we've done the same thing here. Innocent civilians are killed, and we don't address that at all. So there needs to be more of that, and less of this idea of we had innocent casualties are just what come with this. That's not acceptable.
Okay. And would you seek war crimes? Would you have the United States? Would you pass a resolution rather for the United States to join the ICC and or support the ICC if not join it in indicting and arresting the current prime minister of Israel for
I'm
war
sorry.
crimes?
Can you repeat that
Okay.
again?
Oh, yeah. Okay. As a member of Congress, would you uh seek a resolution in support of the ICC in the
Okay.
arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu?
Yes, I would. I would. Just from the what we've seen so far and the information that we're aware of as far as how this war has gone. I absolutely would. Yes, I would. I would support legislation for his arrest.
Okay. Okay. Because I think though he's a citizen, also citizen of the United States, primarily in the Pennsylvania area, if I'm not mistaken. He had roots in that state, and that's why
Okay.
probably why I ask is, he was a citizen at one point here, so that's why I asked.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, he was a dual citizen. Yeah. Oh, and speaking about that, right? Would you agree or disagree the idea of people who are dual citizens being members of Congress?
Would I disagree with that?
Yes.
No, no. If you are a citizen, if you have citizenship here, I know for the House of Representatives, 25 years old, 7 years a U.S. citizen, and resident of the country, resident of the state you're running for, um, or that your district is in. As long as you meet those requirements, yes, you should be allowed to run for Congress. I don't know exactly what it is for senators. I believe it's 30. I
Hmm.
believe the age is 37 years citizen and resident in well, of course, obviously resident of the state because you're running for that state. But yeah, I would support that. Yeah, dual citizenship. If you're a citizen, if you meet that requirement, yes, you should be able to.
Okay. Um, Another thing, the last election cycle and the one previously, I think the
Hmm.
midterms of 2022, there has been a movement for excuse me, reparations. Excuse me.
Hmm.
Um, would you support reparations, and if so, how would you go about it?
I know with reparations that I would say I would support that as far as how, and at that point I'm not. There's more education I would need on as far as how we would go about doing so. So right now I'd like to look more into that. Um, but we've talked about this for a long time. Um, I absolutely would support reparations because it's long overdue. But again, I don't want to oversimplify it and make it seem like there's an easy solution with it. I definitely want to look more into just how we can achieve that, and that's a big part of my campaign is to try to do more than just say I support something one way or another, but really say let's dig in and find out exactly how we could. It's mainly the how. That's what I'm saying. The how, not
Hmm.
so much whether or not I would support it because I'm saying now absolutely I would. But let's talk about now how, and that's what I need to do more educate, be more educated on with.
Okay, because there was I did an interview with Marcel Dixon from South Carolina uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, last year. I think it was last year or two. Yeah, it was last year, and his reparations plan were more like creating a bond. Um, give every descendant of slaves something like a bond, almost like a and go
Mm-hmm.
forward from there, issuing bonds to descendant slaves as a as a way of reparations, and people can hold on to these bonds. It's like a savings bond or a war bond or whatever a municipal bond. um I saw that as an option, but there's some other ideas floating around, but I kind of like his uh bond issue because it doesn't come with the whole, how some people from the other community, from the white community, say, well, you're taxing us and you robbing us to give it to us. The whole robbing
Peter to
Paul to
pay
pay
Paul.
Peter. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that it would in that type of talking point. It was, so yeah. Something else I want to
Oh, I
add.
have. Do you mind
Go,
if I
go.
ask a question? If I ask, how much would those bonds be worth?
I forgot. I forgot how much it was. I forgot how much it would be. I did this interview last year, and I forgot what
Okay.
the exact amount. But I was entertaining at the time. Um, I forgot what he said, but I did. I'm trying to remember what I said. I think I came in and I said I want $500 billion as a starting point.
Yeah.
As the whole in it, and then issue bonds. You know, um, I forgot how divided by how many African American people are here. I mean, descendants of slaves, and then do that. Issue the bonds on that way and use that
Uh,
as a clearinghouse.
got you.
Uh,
Okay.
I, right, and then I also me and him was talking about the Freedmen's Bank.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he was talking about uh restarting the Freedmen's Bank to use as a clearinghouse to do that. And then me and him had a discussion on which, because there was a thing called a Freedmen's Bank and banks and savings. I was more about my idea. I know I'm going off the tangent here. My idea was, refund the Freeman's Bank and Savings and use that as a refund that and collect the interest that Congress promised to put in there back in 1876, and so it would flow down to the people who was on the ledger.
Mm-hmm.
The people who's on the ledger in that bank, their descendants should get the whatever portion. And I'm just going to use that as a starting point. Is what I was suggesting with the $500 billion that I would put in. So but anyway, but I forgot what Mr. Dixon, um, what was the dollar amount of each bond. I forgot what he said though, but
Okay.
I forgot. It happened a long, long time ago when me and him talked. So yeah.
Oh, okay. And that's part. And the only reason I asked is because that's part of what I would need, or what I want to look into as far as what specific amounts would be and things like that. So yeah.
Okay. Um, and another thing, how would you, uh, since the education system is under threat by Linda McMahon
Yeah.
and yeah, by Linda McMahon and the Department of Education is about to be uh, done away with.
Mm-hmm.
How would you save the Department of Education, and if so, and if you do, how would you restructure and restructure and revamp the education system in America, since our education system is very is not doing well.
First of all, I would say she needs to be removed. Just like a lot of this, just basically most of his cabinet. They were hired. They're not qualified for the job. She's shown this on multiple occasions herself. She's not. She's nowhere near qualified for this position. And also, the Department of Education is, of course, we know one of the casualties of the so-called Doge and their going after this fraud, waste, and abuse, and so forth. So there's no justification to get rid of that department. There's nothing to that makes sense to get rid of that. So that would have to be. I mean, you would have to get rid of, or once Trump is out of there, his administration should be, close behind him as well. But removing her from the position for one. And as far as the education system in the country, I definitely want to make sure I support that in every way possible. With being able, first of all, to pay our teachers better. And this is something I ran for the school board when I was in Texas before we moved here. And this is something that we've kicked this can down the road long enough. And on the federal level, I know this is more, this needs to happen and start happening on, state and local levels and such. But on the federal level, what I would support or propose myself would be a minimum salary for teachers across the board. Now, of course, this would be sufficient for, teachers in the, where the lowest cost of living exists. So that way that teacher is paid a living wage, and then we go from there. Obviously, let's just throw a random number out there. Let's say $80,000 per year. That goes further in North Dakota than it does in San Francisco. So it would have to be obviously different, but the threshold would be lowest cost of living. Let's get a good salary there, so that they, teachers don't have to take second jobs, that they don't have to buy their own supplies, they don't have to work over the summer, things like, or even during the school year. Some do, take a part-time job during the school year as well. And they, how can we expect that they're taking care of our children to the best of their ability? And these are our children we're talking about. Right. And they're taking care of them to the best of their ability if they have to worry about whether their rent's going to be paid, whether they'll have food, and it's a shame that teachers have to deal with that, but a lot of teachers are.
Would you do like a sliding scale with the pay? I mean, because you talking about the Dakotas with San Francisco, I mean the highest, right? Wouldn't there be like a sliding scale of salaries and and pay? Or
yeah, it would be a sliding scale. Yeah, I just use those two for example because I know San Francisco has one of the highest costs of living in the country. So I just picked two random spots, but yeah, it would definitely have to be a sliding scale. I believe that's the best way to go with it, just to make sure this gets across the board and teachers start getting paid, and we stop delaying this because schools are seeing a lot of enhancements, a lot of improvements, things like that, good stuff maybe for the schools, but teachers are still not being paid, meaning the kids aren't getting the best. And that's something I really want to pursue. And even if we go into it and realize we may have to change some things up, that's possible there as well. But I want to make sure the salaries increases are on the table. We have to keep those on the table and stop putting those aside. Also, I would like to push for free meals for kids in school. We can take care of so much, and we have the money to do it. So that we don't have the money for it, that's not, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not accepting that as an excuse anymore, because we're seeing where money is going when it comes to, for example, let's use Florida. Let's use right here, my home state. This immigration detention center that just closed down here, as they call it, Alligator Alcatraz. I don't want to glamorize or anything, but they were ready with the quickness for $450 million per year to keep that running. It's like, wait a minute, where did that come from? And of course, that came from FEMA and so many other different areas, so many vital areas that we need. But when we're talking about that, we can have the money to take care of it, and it costs less. It won't cost, I don't believe, especially in this district we're talking about, maybe not in the state. I don't have the number specifically, but in no way it should cost that much for children to eat and that would have to be in school anyway. So, those are the areas I definitely want to make sure we hit up on, because we want our children doing well in school. We want them focused. We want them nourished. And again, we want, teachers. We have no schools without teachers, so we need to,
Right.
they deserve better respect than they're getting.
And would you restructure how it's funded, because because it's funded by, on the local level? Would you try to seek to restructure how it's funded? Because like in Florida, in your state, and even in my state, but we pay more in jail and putting people to prison, than we are to educating the pupil.
Mm-hmm.
W- would you try to fix the structural problems of how it's funded, or would you try to leave it as it is, or try to build upon what is currently?
We absolutely have to restructure, and I go to, again, when I ran for the school board, uh, this idea, and it's so quickly dismissed when they say, well, this money is allocated for this and that over here, or for a different budget. Well, we need to restructure it. We need to change it, and it has to be, there's no reason that the prison system is paid more than the school system, and we
Mhm.
can't we can't just we can't just stay in that, in that space. So as far as restructuring, yes, and that's why, on the federal level, I'm more than open to having conversations, especially, to start with Tallahassee here, and then, possibly throughout the country as well. But that's something we absolutely have to explore, because these budgets are not being spent wisely. And again, as I said, I ran for the school board in Texas. We
Mhm.
there was at that time there was a nine-figure budget, or nine figures allocated for enhancements to schools. And
Mhm.
that bothered me, because we're not talking about this was necessary or emergency renovations, things like that. These were enhancements. These were for example, just building, upgrading a locker room. Not that the locker room was coming apart, or plumbing issues in the restrooms, things like that. No, this is just, they just wanted the locker room to look better. One of the members of the school board, who was running unopposed, he stated that this was important because of how the school looks for people coming off the interstate. That's not why you spend that kind of money, because of how something looks. And if you don't have teachers in that school, what difference does it make how it look coming off the interstate? So when those are that when reasons like that are the justification people are using, that money is better spent here, rather than making sure teachers are taken care of and students are taken care of, we have to restructure. We have to say, no, wait a minute, teachers, students, or students, teachers, and then everything else. Because these other areas are not, these other areas are not areas that would need to be worked on all the time. Enhancements, yeah, we have to do enhancements, but they won't be the same enhancements, and we could go maybe a cycle or two without, before the next round of enhancements come in. So if we're able to find nine figures to do it this time, what the money just sits there, it's spent somewhere else. Why don't we take that and reallocate those funds so that teachers and students can be taken care of for once?
Okay.
So, and yes,
Um.
restructuring the answer.
All right. So I know that you are up in Florida. I don't know if y'all are having problems with water, but in
Mm-hmm.
Texas and in other states, we're having problems with, especially in northern Texas and even West Texas, we're having problems with water and access for more water, because how would you and Florida is an agricultural state as well.
Mm-hmm.
With the lack of water, how, what would you do to address water depletion? Um, that certain areas of this country is um, getting. I mean, how would you amend, try to seek relief in that aspect?
There's a lot that we have to look into as far as that, especially like you said, Florida being an environmental state, like others, but especially here, there are a number of issues that we would have to address. And of course, we have population growth. That's a big issue here. Um, and not being and not the population growth by itself is not an issue. Let me correct myself. It's not an issue just the population growth, but addressing as far as how we are adjusting to that. We there are a number of aging septic systems. We want to make sure that we are taking care of that as well, because when repairs have to be done, or when systems have to be, when systems are aging and they're not operating like they should, that creates additional costs. And often, when there are these meetings, and it's determined or it's decided as far as where money goes, these are the times where these aging septic systems or how we repair those may get pushed aside or held off. Well, let's do this at this time, and basically until we have no choice but to repair it. But in the meantime, that means the water quality, the water scarcity, that's going to be an issue too. And we have, especially with all the lakes and so forth we have here, and the state house, there's some issues there as far as what they're trying to do with the water, and we want to get that looked at also. So I would say, and get with our environmental experts and just find out what we need to, because we don't really have much conversations with them either as far as how we can fix this. And we don't, compared to these other areas, that's something we definitely need to look into more.
Okay. And when it comes to transportation,
Hmm.
what is your transportation policy? And if so, would you be a supporter of light rail? I mean, not light rail, rail, high speed rail is what I'm saying. Would you be in support of that?
Yes, because with Tampa is one of the, and this is North District 15 covers Northeast Tampa, so of
Hmm.
course that would run into into District 15. But with and Tampa was, I think, at one time the Congresswoman Kathy Castor, who was in District 14, and I want to say just about all of Tampa is part of her. It's part of her district. And at one time, they were on track to get, to go for high speed rail, and then something went back. I don't have the information on that, but I think at one time, several months ago, I looked that up. I absolutely would support that, because I understand that Orlando and Miami have a form of that, but Tampa does not. And again, this would be, this is a neighboring district, neighboring city, but that's going to affect, because we're so close to it and still part of Tampa Bay, that's going to affect a lot of my district as well. So, and that's one thing I have not heard much pushback on when we talk about transportation and getting high speed rail, um, things like that. Most folks are in favor of it. So yes, I absolutely would support that. I know at the I told you the mayoral candidate at his campaign kickoff, he mentioned that as well as far as something. So I absolutely would support that on the federal level, however I could, to make sure people have that and people are able to get around and not be, not lose hours stuck in traffic, because in traffic, that's a big issue here as well. So that will really alleviate that problem and allow people to get from one place to another, to get to and from work, in timely manners and such.
Okay. So now jumping off of the transportation part, how would you change the infrastructure with uh, with with our energy, um, solar, electric? I mean, solar, uh, wind turbine, gas, natural gas. Would you restructure of how America's run with its energy sources? Um, better question is, what is your policy concerning energy? Um, that would be a better question to ask.
But okay, my policy as far as energy goes, I know we have to continue. And I would support, as far as an actual policy. I don't have a policy as far as it on the energy side yet. But as I'm going around speaking to people, I'm making sure I add that to my list of areas I want to get at, find learn from from experts and have discussions with them to find out exactly what's needed from the district into the state into the country. So what I think that would involve, or that would have to involve, would be making sure we understand where we are, making sure we're in position. Every state is in position to progress and advance, and clean energy, and affordable, especially because when I say affordable, I'm sorry, inexpensive, so that
Hmm.
the residents don't have to absorb the cost of it. Sometimes when even though we're progressing and going, moving in the right direction, we we neglect costs, or we sort of push that, we put the cost on the taxpayer, and I want to make sure we're doing that. So that's what it will start with. It would start with having conversations. And I haven't made it to that point yet, but we're going to start with conversations with the energy experts, and how we can um, how we can do this efficiently without hurting taxpayers more than necessary.
Okay. And I'm looking on your website here, and
Hmm.
I got a few more minutes. I hope I ain't, um, there on your website, you have the thing called the oath of office. Can you tell me what that is? It's called the politician creed. I think it's 9044. Um, what is the oath of office or organization? And I see
Oh,
that that's your endorsements.
okay, yes, the oath of office. This is the first endorsement I have for the campaign. This is someone, the gentleman I met at one of the protests. I believe it was in the not the No Kings I think maybe the first No Kings protest we had here. He saw my work, my videos on social media, and he wanted to offer that they would endorse me, and they decided to, let's say 2 months ago. And basically, all this is just an organization that looks to that wants to go back to holding politicians accountable. And once I learned about that, I thought, okay, yeah, I'm absolutely for that, because we need more of that. The oath of office, again, the oath of office is the organization. The Politicians Creed, part of that was, there's 7 articles, and basically they are in line with what I believe the people should expect. For example, looking at this now, one article states all people have the right to a fair, equitable, and happy life, unburdened by fearful concerns of food, shelter, or medical insecurities. As a candidate pursuing office and a politician holding office, I hold these rights to be my guiding light. Things like that. That it's what people are looking for. There's nothing. These 7 articles. People can, if folks click on that seal, they can see those articles themselves. And nothing. Again, honesty, integrity, and transparency is Article 4. So that's, these are what constituents are looking for in their politicians, and that's of course what I wanted to look for and find out. Okay, well, what are you requiring of me to endorse me? And looking at these articles, that's exactly, those align with with my beliefs, my values, and what I believe people are looking for.
Okay. And I think I have one more question. And uh, should you win in next year, how would you address the Trump administration? Would you seek impeachment? And if not, would you seek Amendment 25, Section 3? I think Section 2 or Section 3, uh, based on his mental decline. Would you seek remedies against the current the current um, commander in chief?
Oh, impeachment, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
that's not even a question. Yeah, impeachment. That would be the first step. If he's still there for whatever reason, yes, that's. I feel like that's, yeah. He's a danger. He's a threat to our country. He needs to be impeached. He needs to be out of there.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's all the answers. I mean, questions I have right now, and I want to thank you, Mr. People, for coming by. I
Hmm.
have a small channel and everything, and you're about the seventh, eighth person. It's been a small number of people I have interviewed over the course of years. I've been curious about politics and everything. So, but thank you for coming by, Mr. People. Um, and any last words though? Um, I'll tell you what. Do you have any Can you please remind what social media accounts that you on? Because you did mention TikTok and Instagram, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. And my social media accounts are, you can look up Robert People for Congress, and those, all my social accounts have that, just Robert People, no S on the end of people, Robert People for Congress. And I made the names all the same with, for the most part, Robert People for Congress should work on every one. So that way it's easier to find me on every social account. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, Blue Sky. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Lemon8. I'm on Threads, Substack, and I want to say that is all. But I'm on those platforms. My website is peopleforcongress.com, and you can, anyone listening to this can, you'll feel free to donate $5, $10, anything to help the campaign. Of course, we have to fundraise. Also, we have the Real Change Starts with People Dream Team, our volunteers. You can volunteer there as well. On the homepage, you can go to the top where it says Get Involved, and that should be able to get you there.
All right, sir. But thank you for dropping by, though. It's been a pleasure, though, discussing this with you for this, at least, for this hour. So thank you, and I wish you luck in during the primary and in the general election.
Okay, appreciate you, Big J. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. This concludes our my interview, and I'll see y'all next time. And I'm out. Bye bye, y'all.